You're listening to attorney James Mitchell Brown. If you've joined us in progress, the replay will be available afterwards. And I see the questions are just flowing in. We will address those in a few minutes. But I do want to move on to the one other last topic, if I could, Jim, that we have on our discussion list today. A lot of people are just, sitting around pins and needles at their home with their shades closed, afraid to do anything because there's this whole like media push out there about the Social Security surveillance, SSA surveillance, meaning like they could be looking at you. So if there's a black truck across the street from somebody that's kind of paranoid, they might be like freaking out. So what's the real deal? What can they really do? And are they doing this? Is any of this legit? What's going on?
First of all, if you're getting Social Security disability, the people watching should know that that doesn't mean you're in a wheelchair, that you can't do anything. You can be disabled and mow your lawn and then have to sit down and rest for 2 or 3 hours afterwards. Surveillance isn't a big deal. It's a big deal if somebody calls Social Security and says, I think my neighbor is fraudulently receiving benefits. You should look at them. Somebody might watch them then. That's why I always tell people, don't make a big deal of getting your disability.
Mm-hmm.
A couple cases I've actually represented people on that are interesting to know. One, somebody owned a diner. He got disability. His accountant said, put the diner in your son's name. His son was 8 years old. He transferred ownership to his son. He had a manager. You can have unearned income. They had video of him walking into his diner every morning at about 8. They had video of him leaving the diner every afternoon at about 2. And they charged him with fraud, with an overpayment. At the hearing, this is a man who walked in, sat at a booth, and drank coffee. Didn't cook, didn't take an order, didn't take a payment, never was at the register. At the hearing, the Social Security fraud team showed about 2 hours of video, digested down to about 30 minutes. They finally admitted that they had about 80 hours of video, and not one of them showed him working. Everything showed him sitting at a booth. The judge filed a complaint against one of the fraud investigators, found no fraud, no overpayment. It's somebody else who was getting a CDR. They charged him with fraud, cut off his benefits. He actually had to get a criminal lawyer because they indicted him. And they said he was worse than when he got disability, but they had videos of him not using a cane, and he used a cane when he got disability. Since he got disability, he'd had 2 back surgeries, a heart attack, and a stroke. His physician, his neurologist, was just livid that they could dare indict this man. And the jury was out about 35 minutes to find him not guilty. Then we had to get Social Security to reinstate his benefits. Another one, a woman and her 2 special needs kids were all getting SSI benefits. Her husband, after 6 years of this, Social Security wanted to know, he bought them a house to live in, but gave an affidavit to Social Security that they were separated. Social Security, after some surveillance, found out they weren't separated. He was living with them and going to work every day. So she shouldn't have been getting SSI or as much, and they lied about the house. She came to me when they were both indicted, and I found she started getting SSI in 2001. Her date last insured for regular disability was 2000. When she signed up, Social Security should have signed her up for disability, not SSI. 2001 was a crazy year when most of the Social Security employees were upset with the administration for some rules changes and didn't do their job. I eventually got her Title II disability benefits, wiped out the overpayment. They ended up owing her and her kids about $70,000. Her husband still had to plead guilty to a crime because the affidavit he gave to Social Security saying, I don't live there, everything was false. And he lost his job because of that. So there are some
that's a win right there. Well done.
It was a win, but I felt terrible that we couldn't convince his employer, he worked in a hospital, that this conviction was irrelevant to his job. So Social Security, one more that's really relevant because of how terrible they are. About 4 to 5 years ago, they had about 2 years where they were following Spanish-speaking people into grocery stores, asking them questions like, where's the milk? And the person would point to where in the store it was. And then they'd show up at their house and say, you said you don't speak English and you answered our question. So you're fraudulently getting these benefits. We're probably going to take back all the money you've received and indict you for a crime. But if you give up your disability, we won't. They'd give up their disability, and then 6 to 12 months later, I'd get a call and I'd represent them, show that that was fraudulently done, and get their benefits back retroactively. Judges, again, most of the judges really are decent and trying to do a good job. And they were so offended by the fraud units doing this. So there is some surveillance. People on disability shouldn't worry unless they're actually working, and say working under the table.
Okay. So that's, if there's a targeted group, would you say it's the working under the table?
Only, again, if somebody's actually reporting them.
Yep. So the surveillance is
not an issue.
It's not an issue. It could be caused by something, but not to be concerned for it. You can open your shades and you can walk freely outside. You can get on about your life. That's great.
Take care of your yard. If you happen to be doing your own roof and your neighbor's roof, it could be a problem. But again, only if somebody actually has reported you. Otherwise, nobody's going to be there watching you.
Right.